Hello and welcome back to another Hitfilm tutorial. Today I'm going to be showing you how you can create a Superman heat vision effect inspired by the Superman films. This is the effect we're going to be creating. So without further ado, let's get on with this tutorial. So I'm going to take my footage clip, open up the trimmer and kind of cut this down to where I want it to, because in the first part I kind of prepared myself for this effect and then acted it out and then I kind of go off camera. Just going to add this to the timeline. I'm going to change it to match the settings. Then I'm going to right click on this and select Make Composite Shot. I'm going to call this Effect. I'm then just going to leave all of these settings the same and press OK. This has now created a composite shot which has the footage in it. The first stage in this effect is to track the eyes, because this is where we're going to be adding the lasers or the heat vision. So let's do that. So select your footage layer, go over to Controls, then find Tracks and press on the green plus at the end of Tracks. And this will then take you over to the layer window and you'll have the tracking panel. I'm then just going to move this red box over my eye. I'm going to change the red box to be bigger and just make it match my eye. Then I'm going to head back to the start of the timeline and just correct this. And then I'm going to track forwards. Hitfilm will then go through and track the location that you put inside of the red box, but searching within the green box. Then you want to create a new point layer, and just name this something like right eye track if you're tracking the right eye, and if you're tracking the left eye first, then call it the other. Then I'm going to go back to the tracker and I'm just going to change the layer to be right eye track. Check we've got X and Y position checked and then press apply. I'm then going to track the left eye using the same method as before. And I'm also going to create a left eye track point. And then I'm going to assign the tracking data from the left eye track to the left eye point. Then I'm going to return to the viewer window and I'm just going to close out those tracks. And now we've got these two tracked points that match the movement of the eye. Now, to make this actually a beam rather than just a singular point, we're going to create another point for each of these. So I'm going to create two new points, and I'm going to rename them. So I'm going to rename the first one to right eye target, and I'm going to rename the second point to being left eye target. Then I'm going to parent these layers to the eye tracks. So left eye target will be parented to the right eye track. And the left eye target is going to be parented to the left eye track. Then I'm going to right click on these target points and select reset. And these will move them to be sat on top of the tracking point. Then all I'm going to do is select the target points, and I'm then going to drag them on the x-axis off screen. And now, as you can see, we have points on the eyes and also points off screen. And then as you move through the timeline, you will see that they all move at the same time. This is what we want, because we will be assigning the first part of the beam to the target point of the beam, which then means that you have greater control over the movement of these point layers. So let's actually build up some heat vision beams. I'm going to create a new black plane. I'm going to call it right beam. Then I'm just going to press OK, and this will create a new black plane. Once I've created this black plane, I'm going to go to the Effects tab and search for Light Sword 2-Point Auto. Then I'm going to drag and drop this onto the black plane, and then I'm going to right click on this black plane and select the blend mode to being Add. I'm going to go to the Control tab and go into the properties for the Light Sword 2-Point Auto effect. Then going to go down to the inner glow controls and just remove the glow completely. I'm also going to change the core colour from blue to white. Then under the hilt and tip controls, I'm going to change the position points. So I'm going to change the position of the hilt to being the right eye track, and then I'm going to move the tip point to the right eye target. You will notice that it's completely off on the target, and that is because it's got an offset of 300 pixels, so I'm just going to set that back to being 0. And that has now assigned the start of the beam to the right eye track, and the end of the beam to the right eye target. And this will also move along with the eye. And the target will as well. Then you can play around with the look of this beam. I want it to be slightly wider, so I'm going to go into the core controls and change the width from 100 to something around 120%. Just increase the size slightly. Then I'm going to go into the Effects tab and search for the Lightning and Electricity effect. This will just add some slight randomness to this core that we've created here, so it's not just a straight line. There will be small bits that waver off and create an awesome looking electric effect. In the settings, I'm just going to change the start point to the right eye track, and I'm just going to zero out the position controls. Then the end point is going to be set to the right eye target, and I'm going to zero out these controls as well. As you can see, this is going crazy and it's not quite what we want. So I'm going to reduce the twitch and wave scale to make it more into a straight line. You can also see that these branches aren't really doing as we want them to do, because we don't really want any branches. So under the branches control, I'm going to change the quantity from 5 to 0. And that's now just kind of created this fairly subtle electric distortion. Not distortion. It's kind of electric craziness around the edges. I also don't want to glow on this because we're just going to add the glow to the entire effect, rather than applying it to each individual effect. So under the glow controls, I'm going to change the opacity down to 0. That's now just made everything white. I'm now going to search in the Effects tab for glow. And this is where we start going to make this look a lot hotter and redder. So I'm going to open the glow controls, and I'm going to start increasing the intensity until we get something that's a bit more noticeable. Something like that. Then under per channel intensity, I'm going to increase the red value. Then I'm also going to decrease the green and blue values. This has now created a really hot red. I'm then going to duplicate this glow, but I'm going to decrease the intensity and increase the radius. I'm going to do this once more. And that has now created a red glow. I then want to do the same thing but for the left eye. all I'm going to do is select these two light sword and lightning electricity effects and just duplicate them. Then I'm going to just move them together and rename them. So the first set are going to be right eye, then the second set are going to be the left eye variants. So I'm going to change this to being left eye light sword. And I'm going to change the second one to being left eye lightning. Then I'm going to change the parent points in the hilt and tip controls to being the left eye track and left eye target. And then under the lightning effect, I'm going to change the start and end points to being left eye track and left eye target. With the lightning, I also have control over the seed value, so I am just going to change that up so that they're not the exact same. Now I'm looking at this glow and I'm seeing that it's very intense, so I'm just going to open the first glow and reduce the intensity slightly. So this is looking okay, other than the fact that there is nothing being affected on the face. Because if there was a massive glowing beam coming out of your eyes, then I'm pretty sure your face would be slightly at least slightly illuminated by it. So what I'm going to do is create a new plane layer. I'm going to set this to being red. Quite a nice deep red, so I'm just going to take it to the top and go like that. Okay. Then I'm just going to rename this to being red plane. That's now covered my screen in red. Then I'm going to cut out an oval around the middle of the plane, so that then the anchor point is in the center of this. I'm just going to align it to be over the eyes. Then I'm just going to open the mask settings, and then just kind of go around and alter these to make it a bit smaller. I'm then going to right click it and change the blend mode to overlay. There are other methods that you can achieve this same kind of red glow. You could duplicate your footage layer and then color grade it to be red, then change it transparent, but this is the one that worked best for me. I'm then going to once again just play around with some of these shape controls so that it lines up more to be over my face. Then under the feather strength, I'm just going to start increasing it. I'm just going to decrease the intensity of this plane layer so that it's slightly less intense. I'm then going to move the red plane below the beam layer, and then if you disable the beam, you'll see that that is increasing the red on my face. You might notice that this doesn't at all match up with the movements of the head, and it's just staying in the same place. So just to line up that red plane layer again over the eyes, and then parent this to the eye that's closest to the camera. That would be for me the right eye track, and this will then move with your head layer. And now your plane layer should move with the eye. This is looking alright, but we might want to add some flicker to this, so I'm just going to go to the Effects tab and search for flicker. If I can spell, that would be great. Then I'm just going to drag and drop this onto the red plane layer. This will then just add some kind of random flicker to this. So this is looking good, other than the fact that the eyes aren't really being too affected by this. So I'm going to grab the same black plane that we created earlier, which is the right beam plane, and I'm just going to drag and drop this over the right beam that we originally created. Then I'm going to rename this to being flares. Then I'm going to go in the Effects tab and search for flare, and then go to light flares, and drag and drop this onto the flare layer. Then I'm going to go into the controls and change the hotspot position to being the right eye track, and I'm going to set the center points to being 0, 0. Then I'm going to right click on the plane layer set the blend mode to add. That has added a massive flare, which we don't really want. So I'm just going to go into the flare type and choose one of these. So I chose to use the soft spike flare type, and I changed the intensity to being 0.75. I then changed the brightness of the other elements down to being 0.10 because I still wanted to have them being a bit more subtle. So then I'm going to duplicate this single flare layer, and I'm then just going to change the hotspot position to being the left eye track. I'm then just going to rename these effects to being right eye flare and left eye flare. The reason for renaming the effects is so that then when I'm going through I can easily find the ones that match up with the others. Then if you are shooting this video, if you did shoot your footage on a green screen, you can then select your final layer and then green screen using whatever method you find best. I have made a video that goes through the different methods of chroma keying inside of Hitfilm, but I'm just going to use the Chroma Key, and then I'm just going to grab the picture that I wanted to use as my background. Then I'm just going to go in and change some of the settings for this to key out more. Then I'm wanting to create like a final comp which has a different camera angle that's a bit more close, and I also wanted to add some final effects to really add to this. So I'm going to create a new composite shot, and I'm just going to call this final. I'm going to leave all of the settings the same, and I'm going to press OK. Then I'm going to drag and drop the effect comp, which is the one that we built up this entire scene in, and then I'm going to change the camera angle to zoom in a bit more, making it a bit more intense. And then I'm going to create a new grade layer, and then I'm going to grab the letterbox, drag and drop this onto the grade, and then I'm just going to change up the that up slightly. So I'm just going to rename this grade layer to being letterbox. Then I'm going to create another grade layer, and this is going to have a camera shake on it. Then on this letterbox layer I'm just going to grab the lens dirt effect and put this below the letterbox. And this built-in lens dirt isn't that realistic, so I'm going to grab the lens dirt 7 image from one of the packs that I downloaded of lens dirt. I have quite a few of them. I think this one was one of the ones that was part of the bokeh pack released by Inkscape Digital. And then inside of the grey layer under lens dirt, I'm going to change the dirt layer to being the lens dirt 7 image. I'm just going to then decrease the intensity and increase the blur. I also wanted to add some chromatic aberration just to kind of add a bit more visual interest to the scene. So under the effects tab I'm going to search for chromatic aberration, and then I'm just going to drag and drop this onto this letterbox plane and move it above the lens dirt, so then the lens dirt is being affected by it as well, because that looks awesome. Then I'm going to check the checkbox next to use lens. I'm just going to increase the scale slightly. And as you can see, a very subtle chromatic aberration is being applied to some areas of the frame. I also want to add a slight lens zoom blur to this, so I'm going to search in the effects tab for zoom blur, and I'm just going to apply this over the top of everything. I'm just going to move the center to being in between the eyes to kind of draw the focus towards the eye. I also then grabbed the red plane that we created earlier and just put this above the effect comp, And then I'm just going to create a big elliptical mask that's just off to the edge of the screen. Make it even bigger. And then I'm going to open up the controls for this, open up the shape, and increase the feather to being something really, really high. Then, after I've feathered this mask on the red plane, I'm going to right click on it and change the blend mode to screen. This just kind of adds a bit more of a glow and a blown out look to this shot. Then I'm just going to add a subtle glow to this red plane. If you wanted to, you could also animate the intensity of the light flares and animate the extension of the point layers, so that then you have like transition into the effect being started. But I'm quite happy with how it looks as it is. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you did, then please leave a like and subscribe. That would be greatly appreciated. And if you have any suggestions for future tutorials, then please tell me in the comments below. Or if you have any questions about this effect, then also please feel free to ask in the comments, and I'll try to respond to you as soon as I can, if I can answer your question. See you next time. Goodbye.